I don't know about you, but I'm getting sick and tired of it. I'm downright weary with what's been going on in our world. I mean, 2020, can we get it behind us sooner, please? Our whole collective story in 2020 has been dominated by power politics that's left us with a post-election hangover, right? And we've been living with the fear of death, a pandemic that just we haven't gotten under control, and hospitalization rates are going up and all this stuff. It wears me out. How about you? We're going to talk about a solution to that, a better way, how we can get this year behind us.
World waits for a miracle. Our heart longs for a little bit of hope. Oh come, Emmanuel. A child prays for peace on earth, and she's calling out from a sea of hurt. Oh come, Emmanuel. And can you hear the angel singing, glory to the light of the world, glory
2020 has been dominated by, nasty political maneuverings and the fear of death. And collectively, we find ourselves wanting something better. We find ourselves wanting something more for this new year. And people are asking, how can we find our way out of this jam? How can we get to that better place, a happy place, a joyful place, the same stuff was going on over 2,000 years ago. The ancients were experiencing political maneuvers that were probably worse than what's going on today. And there were many people living in the real fear of death. And people were wondering, how can we survive? How can we find better times? It was a weary world searching for joy. And this was all the backdrop. Fear of death, political power moves and stuff like that. It's all the backdrop of the Christmas story, actually. In Matthew's account, he says this: Jesus was born in the town of Bethlehem in Judea during the reign of King Herod. Let me tell you about King Herod, okay? By the time he became Herod the Great, okay, because he had ruled Judea on behalf of the Romans for over 40 years. And he'd been in the job for a really long time. And during those years, he definitely crushed his opposition, but he actually showed a lot of skill in the way he ruled. He held power for so long because he was wealthy, he was politically gifted, he was intensely loyal, he was an excellent administrator, and he was clever enough to remain in the good graces of successive Roman emperors during that time. The Romans were occupying the land. And even some of his opponents had grown to respect him for the good work he had done. He had helped relieve famine and help the people of the country meet some of their goals. But here's the thing. He wasn't going to finish well. And by the time Jesus shows up, he's in his last stages of being the king. By this time he was old, he was sick, and death was creeping up on him, and he was wanting to maintain control, and he wanted to determine his legacy. And what happened was he was becoming increasingly paranoid. Kind of sound familiar? I don't know. His paranoia led him to do some really despicable things, including killing some of his closest associates, and he even killed his favorite wife and two of his sons. I mean, I can see you often your old ornery wife or something like that, but killing your favorite one of all, wow, But part of his legacy planning also was that at his death, he had given orders that hundreds of Jewish leaders would be killed on the day of his death. And so his paranoia drove political drama, fear entered into the whole nation, and into all of this political drama, into the fear that was being exercised into the fabric of the nation, comes a group of travelers, okay? The original Christmas event included a group of people who traveled in. They were trying to find a better way. They were seeking a better future. Their journey is one of the most famous stories in history, and the highlights of their journey are told in the first part of Matthew's account of Jesus' birth. This stuff happened shortly after his birth, and these guys were outsiders. They were travelers, and their search had landed them into this tense and complicated situation. And sometimes it's happened a whole bunch of times. My wife, I'll be talking to a group of people, we'll be sitting at a table or something, all of a sudden I get whacked, I get kicked under the table, and I'm like, what is going on, and I get kicked again, and there's been at least a couple of times. I said, why did you just kick me? Well, you know why? It was because I was clueless. I was saying stupid stuff. I didn't know what I was walking into. Well, these guys were clueless. They really needed their wives with them to straighten them out and kick them under the table to keep them from asking dumb questions, okay? But being clueless and not knowing about the politics of the day and the threats of death that were in this town they'd come into, this nation they'd come into, they asked a question that made people run for cover. The text says this: about that time, some wise men, they were called magi, from eastern lands arrived in Jerusalem asking, where is the newborn King of the Jews? That was the dumb question, okay? We have seen his star as it arose, and we have come to worship or to pay homage to him. This idea of worship wasn't the idea that they knew that he was the Son of God. The idea was more like they were going to pay honor to a newborn king. And these magi, they were likely from Persia, modern day Iran. And it's a loose term. This magi term is a loose term to describe a wide variety of people who were interested in dreams and what they might mean, astrology, and magic, and they were futurists. They wanted to know about the future, and they wanted to know ideas about the future. And this idea that they saw his star arose, we're not sure exactly what that means, but they had quadrants in the sky, we believe, and different quadrants meant different things. And they saw all of a sudden this new star appeared in the sky, and they noticed this development in the stars. And through their interpretation, it had led them to this region and to this particular place. Now, this question got asked, okay, where's the newborn king of the Jews? You know, now the paranoid king heard this, okay? Herod was deeply disturbed, verse 3 says, by their question, as was all of Jerusalem, okay? A new king. You know, Herod was disturbed. It was a touchy subject for him for all the reasons I explained. But the people of Jerusalem were freaking out too, because people died when they asked those kinds of questions, okay? But being a shrewd politician, Herod tries to get ahead of the situation, and so he starts scheming, trying to figure out a way to control and contain this threat. And so to do that, he tries to get some intel. He tries to get some inside information. So he called a group of the religious leaders together, leading priests and teachers of the law, and he asked them, where is this Messiah that everybody's been talking about? This Messiah was the new king that people were hoping was going to be born. The one had been promised in the scriptures that would come and overthrow all that was wrong in the world and all that was wrong in their nation. Where's this king supposed to be born? And the religious leaders said, well, in Bethlehem, for this is what the prophet wrote, O Bethlehem of Judea, you are not just a lowly village in Judah, you are for a ruler will come from you who will be the shepherd for my people Israel. So with this information in hand, Herod tries to get the travelers, the magi, to help him and contain his threat to power. They didn't know what they were walking into. So Herod sent a private message, it says, to the wise men, asking them to come and see him. And at this meeting, he learned the exact time when they first saw the star, giving him a clue as to when this child might have been born, how old he was at this point. Then they answered him. They said, he told them, go to Bethlehem and search carefully for the child. And when you find him, come back and tell me so that I can go and worship him too, he said very disingenuously. After this interview, it says the wise men went on their way, and then once again, the sign in the sky, the star appeared to them, and it guided them through their interpretation to Bethlehem. And it went ahead of them, and it stopped over the place where the child was. And when they saw the star, it says, they were filled with great joy, okay? And they entered the house where the child and his mother Mary were, and they fell down before, and they paid homage to him. And they opened their treasure chests and gave him gifts of gold, frankincense, and myrrh. Now these gifts indicate that these people were really wealthy. I mean, only wealthy people had the time and the resources to do a trip like this, first of all, but only wealthy people also had these kinds of possessions and that they could give away freely. Gifts of gold. Gold's always been valuable, right? Frankincense was a glittery, gummy substance that was very valuable, that was harvested from the bark of different kinds of trees in Arabia. And myrrh was obtained from a tree also as a valuable aromatic spice used as perfume. But when it was time to leave, they went home another way. And here's why. God had revealed himself to them, and he had warned them in a dream, okay, not to return to Herod, okay? So they went by a different route. I mean, these guys were magi, right? They were wise men. They weren't dummies, okay? And so they got out of there in a different way and didn't give Herod what he was looking for. So in this story, there's some important pieces to the story, I think. An important part of the account is this. Don't miss this. Some of the first worshipers of Jesus were seekers, okay? They didn't have everything all figured out, okay? There was two groups that were going after Jesus that wanted him, but they were both flawed in their inquiry. Herod had the wrong motives. The religious leaders, this rumor's going around that the Messiah has been born. And the religious leaders who should have cared were apathetic. They didn't go searching for him. Only these outsiders did. God loves it when people who don't have it all figured out seek him. And he promises when they do that, they will find him. Their knowledge was limited, but they responded to what they did know. From the beginning, Jesus drew those who were humble of heart, who were seeking. And the other thing that's really important to catch about these guys is they were outsiders. They were people who were open to God, but were outside of the religious establishment that Jesus was born into. One of the first groups that Jesus revealed himself to were religiously and culturally outsiders. Okay, it's super important. And Jesus drew these people. God has always been in the business of drawing the irreligious to him and helping them discover how to become fully devoted followers. And it's also important to note that just like today, just like back then, from the beginning, Jesus created controversy. You start talking about Jesus to some people, and it can be a controversial thing to do, correct? Well, Jesus was always about creating this type of controversy. This time, it created political intrigue. It caused people to be sneaking around to get away from evil people and stuff. But it also created a buzz that was really positive. These wise guys, they were the first guys to start sharing the story of Jesus. You know who the other group was? It was a group of shepherds who had also been out there that night. And the shepherds, they lived in the nation, but they were simple folk. They were simple people. And they became the first ones that started to spread the word. And we call those evangelists, people that tell their friends, their neighbors, people that are in their culture, in their communities about the good news of the birth of Jesus. And then these magi, they came from faraway lands, it says, right? And they went home, and we can assume that they told people about their adventures, right? And so the difference between an evangelist and a missionary is a missionary crosses some kind of cultural divide to share the good news about Jesus. And so these magi become the first, they were marginally informed seekers of truth who found their way to the King of the universe. And they went back and told people from the lands that they came from. And they gave gifts, these guys. That's important to note too. And sometimes people think that, they look at the Magi and they think, well, those were the original Christmas gifts. Those were the first ones to give gifts. But they actually weren't the first ones. They were actually the second ones. You know who gave the first gift? It was God, in giving the gift of his Son, the gift of Jesus to this world. The original Christmas gift, Jesus. God is the giver. He came into this world, he gave the gift to reset the world to its original factory settings, to get things back to the way they were supposed to be. Right after Eve and Adam, they stumbled and they fell and they unleashed this evil force that creates all that political intrigue, creates the fear of death and all that kind of stuff. Right after that happened, there was this promise that God gave in Genesis 3:15 that a woman would give birth to someone who would be born, who would crush the head of the snake, that would eliminate the evil that's in this world and spare the world, deliver the world from all the silly power grabs that people do. The people that think that they get all puffed up in their own power and they think that they're the powerful ones. But Jesus was sent into the world this gift that was promised so that he could reestablish God's sovereignty, showing God to be the all-powerful one over his world. The gift of freeing us also from the fear of death. This Christmas season, as we wrap up 2020 and hopefully head into a new and better year to come, I want to give you a few practical suggestions in all this stuff. And the first is just have this awareness, okay? You and I, we can't cure what's wrong with this world. Okay, this world is really screwed up and it goes beyond human effort. Okay, we can push back disease and death, but we can't cure that. Okay, we can't stop all the things that are going on, all the horrors that we're all the stuff we're afraid of in this world, and all the things that could possibly happen to us and stuff. You understand what I mean? I'm not advocating that we don't get involved and try to make good things happen when it comes to climate, when it comes to disease, and when it comes to human trafficking and all the evil that's in our world. We need to push back on that, stand up to it. But all we are capable of is lessening the symptoms of what's wrong with this world. The cure is beyond our ability. But Jesus is the cure. The birth of this child is that significant event when God came into this world to invade it and in a positive way and to cure. It's his responsibility to bring that cure and to come into a sick and weary world and restore it to wholeness, wellness, and to restore joy. It's our job simply to trust him in this and to long for that cure, long for that day when the lion and the lamb will nap together, when swords will be beaten and repurposed as plowshares, and gone are the days of physical and psychological fear and pain, and gone are the days we long for this when the decay that leads to death and disease that threatens our lives, when all those things are no more. But in the meantime, what I want to ask you to do is embrace the reason for joy that this season represents. We can exude the joy. We can point to the cure. That's what this season is really all about. It's God's job to solve the great overarching problems of our world. Only God can bring joy to a weary world. But in the meantime, it's our job to apply the cure to our individual worlds, to do what we can to lessen these things. And there's a sense in which only I can bring joy to my world, and only you can bring joy to your world. There was, years ago, the Times of London sent an inquiry to a really famous author, a guy named G.K. Chesterton, and they asked him this question. They wanted him to speak into it. He was a theologian, he was a philosopher, he was a poet, okay? And they asked him a really simple question, and they wanted him to answer it so that they could print it. And the question was this: what's wrong with our world today? And G.K. Chesterton's response was, I am. I am what's wrong. We can change this, people. We can take responsibility for what we can control, realizing that we're going to do it in a flawed way, that we are, at the end of the day, are the problem, okay? Because of our selfishness, because of our wrong ideas and all this kind of stuff. We've got to own that. But then we bow the knee before the one who came into this world to offer us forgiveness and wholeness and a second chance and a hope for the future. In the meantime, we can, as we trog through this weary world, we can spread joy. We can be that kind of Johnny Appleseed of joy. We really can. And I want to give you just a few practical suggestions on how to do that during this holiday season and taking this into the new year. First is this: ruthlessly eliminate discontent in your life, okay? Instead, nurture an attitude of contentment. Focus on what you have instead of what you lack. Focus on what you have instead of maybe even what you want, okay? And eliminate discontent. Just drop it by. Just look and realize all the blessings you already have. Eliminate ruthlessly stinginess in your life. Instead, live with a generous spirit and a generous attitude. A generous heart is a joyful heart, for sure. And here's another one, and maybe COVID's helping you do this. Eliminate hurry, okay? Eliminate a hurried life. A hurried life eventually degrades into a joyless life. Instead, smell the flowers. Take the time to watch that sunset. Go outside, watch that sunrise. Whatever you are, a morning person or a night person, just figure it out. And there's things you can do, even during this Christmas season. You know, read the Christmas story instead of the ads, okay? Listen to some Christmas music instead of that talk radio that's just going to put all that, discontent back in your head. And watch a fire instead of watching TV. And during this season, the world will be such a better place. Your world will be such a better place if you really focus on learning how to love again, reclaiming a sense of wonder about the beauty of life, and rediscovering the simple pleasures of life. And, play with the box instead of the toys, maybe, or something like that. And let your imagination run wild, and give away happiness in the belief that it'll be re-gifted and will come back on you, Eliminate guilt, okay? Because do life God's way. He's freed you from the fear of guilt, and he's given you forgiveness and stuff in the child that we celebrate at this time of year. Connect with God, because the Spirit-filled life is a joy-filled life. And choose joy. The Apostle Paul wrote this in his letter to the Thessalonians. He said, "Be always joyful. Pray continually about the stuff that stresses you out. But in all circumstances and all situations, be sure to give thanks. No matter what happens, always be thankful, for this is God's will for us in Christ Jesus." Would you pray with me? Father, teach us this Christmas season and this coming new year to make us into people who are always joyful, always prayerful, always thankful for the gift you've given us in your Son, Jesus Christ. Amen. Thank you for joining us today. I hope this was helpful to you. And the weariness that we're experiencing in this world, the cure for that is Jesus, the Christ that was sent into this world that we celebrate this Christmas season. I hope you connect with that joy. And thank you for your financial supports to our ministry. It means so much. You can see on the bottom of the screen the ways that you can connect with us and support our ministry. We also want to connect with you. You can contact us through rcvc.life, and in any way we can help you, we'd love to do that this Christmas season. God bless you, and have a great Christmas season and a Happy New Year.
Star burns in the darkness, shines with the promise, Emmanuel. One child born in the stillness, living within us, Emmanuel. We're singing glory, glory. Let there be peace, let there be peace, singing glory, glory, let there be peace, let it start in me. One voice speaks for the voiceless, hope for the hopeless, Emmanuel. Brings us together now and forever, Emmanuel. We're singing glory, glory. Let there be peace, let there be peace. Singing glory, glory. Let there be peace, let it start in me. Do not be afraid, His love is strong enough to save us. Nothing stands in the way, His love is strong enough to lead us. Do not be afraid, His love is strong enough to save us. Nothing stands in the way, His love is strong enough to lead us. Singing glory, glory. Let there be peace, let there be peace. Singing glory, glory. Let there be peace, let it start in me. And we're singing glory, glory. Let there be peace, let there Let it start in